समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
I know that expectation would have been that today I will talk about the famous victory of our women's cricket team. However, there is a lot to read about that and there is a lot to watch on that. There isn't any clutter. All I will do is at the end of this episode, I will give you a tiny story about women's cricket and about myself, my early days as a journalist. I know I've used this line about several situations and several people and several stories, but also about Donald Trump. That Donald Trump is a gift that keeps giving. Even so, it's worthwhile repeating it because he deserves this compliment once again. What has he done in this case? He has spoken to CBS on the 60 Minutes program to anchor Norah O'Donnell. Now, 60 minutes by definition is 60 minutes. However, he's spoken for a bit longer and he did not like the fact that the network cut him to 60 minutes. That might be the name of their show. So what he's done is he's put out the entire video of 73 minutes, just 13 minutes more. That is the video I will share with you. Now, if you go to that video, go to minute 13. That's where he's talking about the need, as he mentioned just before his meeting with Xi Jinping in Korea, he mentions that America is going to resume testing again. And that's where Norah O'Donnell pushes him. And I will give you some verbatim conversation between them as we go along. But the fact is, the important thing is, he says other countries are testing. And she says, who's testing? I'm giving you a summary because that's where the story lies. He says, well, Russia is testing, China is testing, North Korea is testing, and Pakistan's testing. And then, of course, she says, no, but they are not testing nuclear weapons. They are testing maybe delivery systems. And he says, no, they are testing nuclear weapons. You know, they may be the most powerful weapons, but they take them deep underground and test them there. And what you might feel is a little vibration. Now, the important thing, first of all, the important thing is, in the edited version, the rest is there. North Korea is also there, but Pakistan is missing. That is the edited video version. Pakistan's missing. Now, why it's missing? I'm not one for conspiracy theories. Maybe it's just because they had to cut out 13 minutes out of the 73, and Pakistan saved them. That Pakistan mentioned saved them 30 seconds or 20 seconds. So they've cut that out. That's not there. However, we caught it in the 73-minute video that Trump put out. This comes up at around 14:30 in that video, and also in the transcript, the full transcript that CBS has put out. I am sharing links to both with you. This is a reference to Pakistan. Donald Trump saying that Pakistan has been testing. He's also said that these tests are carried out very deep underground, which is possible. Maybe these are low yield tests, right? Because Pakistan has been working on tactical nuclear weapons for a very long time. And Pakistan, unlike India, does not have a no first use policy. Pakistan, if anything, has been talking about a low threshold of the use of nuclear weapons, given that they are a narrow country, they don't have strategic depth in their country. Now, once again, I'm not adding 2 and 2 and making 5 or 6, but the fact is that we have to remember that just around Op Sindoor and after, there were many instances of low strength tremors reported from Karachi and around, which means the western part of Pakistan and somewhere there. So maybe these were just minor tremors, 3.6, 4.2 like that. But who knows, maybe there was something to it, because Donald Trump can also shoot his mouth off. At the same time, he came well briefed. He came so well briefed that for his claim of having stopped 8 wars, he said 9th he has not succeeded as yet, Ukraine and Russia, but 8 wars, he actually had it, a sheet of paper folded inside the pocket of his jacket, and he took it out so he could read out accurately the names of the countries where he stopped the war. In this case, there was no Albania confused for Armenia or Azerbaijan pronounced as Azerbaijan. So he read it out. He was very well prepared for this interview, and he obviously sought this interview out because he had come from China and he wanted to explain what he thinks he had achieved and what he thinks he has not conceded, because he was very triggered, as he said in this interview, by a lot of coverage in the American media. He singled out the Wall Street Journal for saying that he had lowered tariffs and thereby he had conceded too much to the Chinese. So that was his burden. Now let me bring you back to this Pakistan mention, because as far as we in India are concerned, that is the critical mention. Of course, later he goes on talking about stopping the war and using the weapon or threat of stopping trade, etc., putting tariffs, etc. That's besides the point. But hear me out on this exact conversation, this exact stretch of conversation. That is something that we in India need to take note of. This is a printout from the CBS transcript of the interview. So here comes the question. Nora O'Donnell says, are you saying that after more than 30 years, the United States is going to start detonating nuclear weapons for testing? Trump says, I am saying that we are going to test nuclear weapons like other countries do. Nora O'Donnell says, the only other country that's testing nuclear weapons is North Korea. China and Russia are not. Trump says, no, Russia is testing nuclear weapons. And then conversation goes on like this, with Nora O'Donnell pushing back, saying, no, others are testing devices or delivery systems, but not weapons. And Trump says, Russia is testing, China is testing, but they don't talk about it. You know, we are an open society. We are different. We talk about it. We have to talk about it because otherwise you people are gonna report. They don't have reporters that gonna be writing about it. We do. No, we are gonna test because they test and others test. And certainly North Korea has been testing. Pakistan has been testing. I have deliberately slowed down here. Now this one line, Pakistan has been testing, is not there in the published version of this interview on CBS. Once again, it's authentic because Donald Trump has put out the full interview where Pakistan mentioned features quite accurately. Once again, go to minute 13 and carry on and play it slowly around minute 14:30 and you will find it. Then Nora O'Donnell says, no, not nuclear weapons is my understanding, even after the North Korea-Pakistan mention. And Trump says, of course they have. Again, Nora O'Donnell says, North Korea has, but not nuclear weapons. What she means is, others have not tested nuclear weapons. Trump replies again and interrupts her and says, but they don't go and tell you about it. And you know, as powerful as they are, the nuclear weapons, as powerful as they are, this is a big world. You don't necessarily know where they are testing. They test way underground where people don't know exactly what's happening with the test. You feel a little bit of a vibration. They test and we don't test. And then he goes on like that. So this is something that changes the picture a little bit. Later on in the same interview, watch the same interview, and what we'll do is, from the transcript, we'll give you an underlined portion from there. That is when he's talking about stopping the war between India and Pakistan. He said the two prime ministers, they were going at each other. 7 planes had been shot down. He repeats that claim. He doesn't say whose planes. He says 7 planes had been shot down. And then he says the Prime Minister of Pakistan, he put it, obviously he's very happy that Shehbaz Sharif said so, and that too in his presence at Sharm el-Sheikh. He says, but I stopped as an example. India does a lot of business with us. They were going to war. They were going to have a nuclear war with Pakistan. The Prime Minister of Pakistan stood up the other day and said, if Donald Trump did not get involved, many millions of people would be dead right now. That was a bad war he was ready to start. Now, this is Donald Trump's line. That was a bad war he was ready to start. So did in this case Pakistan spook the Americans, one by carrying out these tiny tests which will be picked out by the Americans and many others, and then at that point in the Op Sindoor period or after or thereabouts, saying that they were considering using nuclear weapons, even if low yield tactical nuclear weapons. That's a ploy the Pakistanis have used many times in the past. Once again, I don't want to overinterpret it. I also don't want to overemphasize it. But this is a Pakistan and nuclear testing reference. Pakistan nuclear testing and deep underground testing and vibrations reference. This does not appear specifically. Just this tiny line has been excluded in the published version of the interview, but Trump goes on and then further dwells on it. So did the Pakistanis once again manage to spook the Americans by basically saying that, look, conventionally we are at a disadvantage, so our threshold is very low, our tolerance of attrition is very low, so we will go nuclear or we will use nuclear weapons much sooner than you imagine, and then India will respond, so you better come and stop what's going to happen now. And when a ceasefire took place, and it's true that the Pakistanis asked for the ceasefire, it is uncontrovertible the fact that they made the call at 3:30 p.m. Indian time on the 10th of May. Even the Pakistanis don't deny it. By which time it is possible that the Pakistanis were already telling the Americans or hinting to the Americans that we don't have the tolerance for more exchanges like this. We might be doing something else. We might be using more extreme measures. And as you know, India's nuclear doctrine is very clear. There is no first use, but if anybody uses a weapon of mass destruction, nuclear, chemical, biological, against us, then the response will be totally disproportionate and devastating, which might be something that was used to spook the Americans. But once again, it is still a theory. However, it's a theory based on some specific facts from this interview, one of which has been interestingly and curiously excluded from the published video version of the interview. Then, of course, Trump talks about other things which also have implications for us. He talks about Taiwan, etc. He's asked, do you worry the Chinese will attack Taiwan? What will you do if they attack Taiwan? He said, if they do, they will find out. You will find out. He's asked, will you tell me? I will not tell an interviewer, but the Chinese know if they made a military move on Taiwan, what the consequences will be. In fact, they've let it be known that until Donald Trump is president, they will do no such thing. All of that's fine. All of that's par for the course. Then he comes to another very interesting point, which is the forthcoming visit to Washington of the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS. And she then asks him, the anchor asks him, that Saudi Arabia has said that they will not sign the Abraham Accords. Do you think they will sign the Abraham Accords? Trump says, yes, I'm quite sure they will sign the Abraham Accords. And she says the Saudis have said very clearly that they will not sign the Abraham Accords without a two-state solution. But Trump says there will be a solution, 2 states or not, I don't know, but they will sign the Abraham Accords. Now, once again, read that with this new warmth with Pakistan and the new Saudi-Pakistan Security Pact as well. So something's going on there. Plus, the Pakistanis have been talking quite freely now about contributing contingents of their army for keeping the peace or keeping the order in Gaza, whether the Israelis accept it or not. But it's unlikely, I would say, that Israelis would accept that if the Pakistanis have not yet recognized Israel. And you know what? The only situation in which Pakistanis will recognize Israel is if the Saudis recognize Israel. I think the Pakistanis are quite happy to do this, but they are waiting for Saudi Arabia to do it. If Saudi Arabia does it, that gives Pakistan perfect cover for doing this. And for that, some kind of a solution will be pushed in the Palestinian region. Once again, Trump does not commit to a two-state solution, but he says he has pushed Netanyahu around. He's a very smart guy, very intelligent guy. He's a wartime prime minister. He's done certain things I was not happy about, and I have pushed him in ways that nobody has. He also is facing cases. He's under trial in his country, which is very unfair. They're being very unfair to him. We will help him with that. So I don't know what's going on, but maybe Trump is hinting at some solution, maybe half a solution, halfway to a two-state solution for which he might be able to push Netanyahu to provide cover to the Saudis now to join Abraham Accords. And if that happens, it's my analytical point, it's not in the interview. If that happens, that will also give Pakistan the cover to recognize Israel, whether they join Abraham Accords or not, and to recognize Israel. And if that happens, that will also alter the geopolitical picture for India once again substantively. Once again, Pakistan is not mentioned here, but Pakistan features behind the scenes or underneath these issues. Nora O'Donnell asks him, actually confronts him by saying that the Trump family is now heavily in the crypto business. That is Trump's sons. They are heavily into the crypto business with a company called World Liberty Financial. And he says there, your family and Witkoff family. Steve Witkoff is Donald Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, Russia, all over the world. She says Trump family, that is your sons Don Jr. and Eric, and Witkoff family are involved in this company. They've jointly floated this company called World Liberty Financial, in which company WLF, she says, Changpeng Zhao, she refers to him as CZ, as most Americans do, Changpeng Zhao has invested. He's the founder of Binance. He has invested $2 billion. He had earlier confessed, he had pleaded guilty to money laundering, for which he had spent some time in jail, and who Trump has now pardoned. And she says, isn't that a quid pro quo? Not her words, my words, I'm shortening it. Isn't that a quid pro quo? Doesn't it indicate corruption that you've pardoned him? So Trump pretends that he doesn't know this guy. He says he was treated very badly. And then he goes on in a long defense of crypto, saying crypto is the future. America is number one. Everybody knows that in the business of crypto, there will be one number one in the world and there will be no number two. The Chinese are trying to catch up. So I'm very happy that my sons are doing it. Nora O'Donnell says, looks like your Trumps have shifted your family business from real estate to crypto. He says if they've done it, they are very smart. It's a very good thing. The important thing is, and it's the same firm, WLF, where Bilal bin Saqib, a Pakistani wizkid of sorts, is also involved. He was advisor there. He's now heading the crypto council in Pakistan. Pakistan has legalized crypto very quickly, and he's also functioning in the rank of a minister. He's the one who had brought Witkoff's son to Islamabad and Lahore within 4 days of the Pahalgam killings. 4 days after the Pahalgam killings, 10 days before Op Sindoor began. That is something we've spoken about in the past. So you can make your own connections in this case. This whole plot is now getting thicker by the day. And here is the story. In January, February of 1976, I came to the Times of India newsroom as a student intern, a student trainee. I was then a journalism student at Punjab University in Chandigarh. This was a part of my curriculum. At that point, the most desperate thing was to somehow get a byline in a newspaper. So what was my first byline in a newspaper? In the Times of India, it wasn't possible. Also, because it was the emergency, they said there was no work in the political city reporting sections. In fact, I was discouraged from being a journalist. So I started hanging out at the sports desk. It was in that process that one day I latched onto the reporter from the Times of India's sports section going to cover what was a curiosity then, a women's cricket test match. The first ever women's cricket test match taking place right down the same road at Firozshah Kotla. That's a 5-minute walk, if at all, from the Times of India building. So I went along with him. This is when India were playing New Zealand, the first test match, 1st to the 3rd February 1976. And some Indian stars of the future were there, names that became so familiar to us. Diana Edelji, Shanta Rangaswamy, for example. And Diana Edelji, I remember when she came into bowl, she bowled left-handed and she came between the stumps and the umpire, just like Bishan Singh Bedi, classical left-arm finger spinner. And somebody said in the press section, oh, this is the female Bishan Singh Bedi. Now, because nobody was going to publish anything from me on this in the Times of India, one, I was so low down the food chain, and second, they had a reporter of their own. I just wrote like a half funny, half serious piece on it of about 600 words and hawked it to what used to be the evening news run by the Hindustan Times group. Editor then was Gyan Singh, and Shevanti Nayanan used to also work there. So that is where I got my first broadsheet newspaper byline. Let me therefore just say in this moment that women's cricket, in fact the first women's cricket test, also contributed to me getting my first byline in a newspaper.